Good evening. Welcome into the First Day Podcast. It is the latest episode of our show. It's also Mental Health Awareness Month, so let's all give ourselves a pat on the back, and a hug. We should all do that. We are live. I am your host, one of your hosts, Michael Govier, at MJ Govier, G-O-V is in Victor, I-E-R, on Twitter. And, of course, my co-host, she's just as much of a host as I am. It's a running joke I make. Leanne, hello. Hi, Leanne.
Hi. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing great, Leanne. You know, we have a guest today.
Oh.
Before we introduce our wonderful guest, I want to make sure you guys are following the show. FirstDayPod at protonmail.com is our email. You can contact us about anything mental health related. Even if it's not mental health related, we are here to serve you. And, of course, First Day Pod, Twitter, Facebook, our YouTube channel. That's where you can link, subscribe, and click the notification button. Every time we go live, we always go live every Sunday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And lastly, our book club on Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Every Monday night, we do the book club. And we're finishing up our book right now called Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey. And it's quite interesting, actually. We do books that are nonfiction so we can learn from other people and other things about this world. Having said that, Leanne, would you please introduce our guest?
Of course, I'm so excited. Oh, this is going to be such a good conversation. So we've got Omalade, or we can call her Lottie. I just love your name, Williams. And she is, I love this. I had her give me a bio, and it says, I am about immigrant inclusion to foster inclusion relationships that bridges equal opportunity in the recruitment of racialized, marginalized Black professionals. Courageous, uncomfortable conversation. And then she ended with, let's talk. So I am so excited for this. Oh, it is going to be so good. What she said. So I always like to ask, and we always ask before, is there anything that's kind of, you don't really want us to ask or bring up? And she was like, no, this is unfiltered. Just let's have a great conversation. So I am super excited to have you here, Lottie.
Thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure.
Oh, it's going to be so good. So, one of the things, so right there, it says blacksis.ca. I want you guys to go to her website. She really lays out a mission that she is trying to do. And we talk a lot about having diversity and inclusion in our workplaces. And it's kind of like it's a nice thing to say, but a lot of people are just doing it to do it, and they're not getting it. And so Lottie has this concept of really getting the culture of inclusion and understanding the culture. And so that conversation needs to be had. And I'm so grateful that you are going to be having this with us here. So what exactly kind of does that mean for people that are listening? That, like, what is the difference?
Well, the difference is, as you guys know, diversity and inclusion is everywhere now. And I see that, the employers are doing really hard to ensure that they've maintained the standard that has been imposed on them. Okay. Now, the issue now that we need to consider, are we considering multicultural, or are we considering multinational? Are we looking at are we looking at the what, or are we looking at the how?
Nice.
Right? So, and also, let's throw in the mix different shades of color.
Okay.
So, Canada is based, and basically it's a country of immigrants from different walks of life, and we all sort of like different shades. Mm-hmm. However, if you do a survey or you do an optical observation, you would think that there's no diversity in the workplace. But then when you speak to ethnic minorities, if they all look almost similar, then you could tell that there's diversity because of the way they speak or their culture. Okay. So all I'm about is more of the darker shades, Black, like myself. We've got a lot to offer, but we're not included.
So tell them a little bit about your story.
Okay, so my story is, I don't mind. My story is that moving to Windsor. I haven't been in Canada for a good number of years, but I've been in Windsor for about 6 years now. I've not been able to secure a professional job within Windsor. I mean,
6 years?
in 6 years, yes. I've not even been able to. I walk to an office door, but that doesn't mean that that's where it ends. I have to go to the back door. I have to go to the back to work.
Yeah.
You know.
What is your by the way, just so what are you certified in? What do you offer as a professional? Just
my
so
background
we all
is
understand.
my background is technology. I'm educated to master's degree, but I've got a number of certification as in micros. I use the word was in technology now because I've not had the opportunity to practice my skill set. So I would say was, but Microsoft certified. I mean, I've got industrial management. I've got diploma in technology. So I've worked across the board from working from local organizations to charity to government, and now I've worked in corporate where I've been in charge of product where I've had to travel across Europe. So I've done it. So I'm very fortunate, I have to say, that I have lived my education. However, in England,
But
I'm
not
British.
Canada.
I'm British, born of African descent. So, but I feel privileged in that aspect. The only thing I think I have an issue with is my level of income. But again, I'm a go-getter. I don't let anything faze me. So I have to pay my bills and
Right.
just take whatever comes my way. However, I mean, even in England, I felt the same way. And I did work with a few people. But however, I find that a number of Black professionals, because I'm homing in on that, and I have my reasons for doing that. Black professionals have spent so much money in their country to get educated, and getting into Canada most times, like I did, I came on my skilled workers program, under the skilled workers program, and obviously our qualifications have been vetted. So I mean, so if it's not vetted positively, then you have a problem getting under that program.
Right.
But so you're promised a job when you get here, or you feel that you'll get a job, or you're coming with a job.
Makes
But
sense.
on arrival, it's a different ball game altogether. You know,
So what's happening?
Well, you would find a lot of medical people who are really well educated, qualified specialists. I'm not saying all. This is my disclaimer. This is my own personal observation, right? And this
Right.
is from discussing with people, different levels, different walks of life, wherever we find ourselves. And they struggle to get a job. They end up being PSWs or working in call centers or working on factory floors, being managed by people who are not even as qualified as they are.
Yep.
So it's really, really painful. I think it's more painful when you find that you can do the job that the person that supervises you doesn't even know how to do very well.
Oh yeah.
And sometimes, like I tried to do a couple of times, going into the factory, because my master's is in innovative manufacturing. You get into a job in the factory and thinking that, okay, you're established there, your attendance is good, you've not been sick, you've done what you've been instructed to do and everything like that, and you're looking for a way out, right? You apply for jobs.
Yep.
But the moment you start doing that and the supervisor feels threatened, obviously you're shown the door. I mean, it's a known thing, because it's who you know. I'm not saying it's limited to Windsor, but so far in Windsor, it's who you know for you to get in. And those who are in positions have been there years because of their father, uncle, daughter, whoever has got them in there. And that range, and that goes from even the city hall, which I've sent in a number of applications to, which they've not acknowledged. You know, so I mean, these are the struggles of, I mean, as I said, I've lived my education, but these are my struggles, which I know that a few people have already endured, and it's not nice. I don't feel it's a nice thing, because you know, there's a cascading effect, right? If you come in as a parent with your kids and you cannot earn the money or be comfortable for you to lead by example for your kids,
right,
the ramification of it is huge. The mental, the stress. If you have to work 16 hours, double the job of someone working in an office, By the time you get home to look after your kids or sit with them, you're stressed already from the politics in the office or wherever you're working at.
Right.
And then you don't have the capacity to give as much to your kids.
Yeah.
And then you try to send your kids to school and they would say, well, what's the point of me being educated when you've got all the qualifications and you haven't got a job to show for it?
Right.
So there is a cycle of they're just issues, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I have an issue with also is that once anyone applies for a job, the emboldened statement is that you have to have Ontario qualification or Canadian experience. Please tell me anywhere on the website where you can go find that, because I'm sure a lot of people will find that, will go look for it and try to adhere to it.
Now, what is that? Is that just given by the corporation, like just by the business, or is that like a mandated thing? Because if you're coming in on a skills, then that shouldn't be a part of that, correct?
Well, I mean, when you go looking for work, especially in Windsor, they want you to have Ontario qualifications or Canadian experience. Now, you can't do that if you volunteer, and that is if you come in with a partner who can work while you do the volunteering aspect of it.
Right.
But if you're on your own and you have bills to pay, then how much of volunteering work can you do for you to be able to build the experience up? And all these are like ideas that experiences I've lived. However, these are things that I know that I've faced. These are issues that I've faced, and I'm hoping that we can address it a bit more. So my business is to be the kind of like middleman for the immigrants coming in, to try to explain to them what is expected by employers. And then for the employers, especially the employers, to understand that the immigrants coming in are really skilled professional people. Mm-hmm. They used to hold very high education and employment where they came from. But it just happens that their name may be difficult to pronounce. They may be able to speak proper English, but the accent is in place.
Right.
So there should be a negotiating leverage in place, so that the employers benefit from the skills and the employee benefits from getting a job that would be mentally stable and healthy.
Right.
Well, one of the problems here is even the common worker, or just like, the average typical worker, has less and less say and leverage in the overall market. So if you throw in the fact that you're an immigrant coming over, if a common worker is already at a disadvantage, they're being pushed down even further. I don't need to tell you this. I'm just kind of thinking out loud about this, the absolute challenge and the increased difficulty there is for anybody who's coming to a new country. And I just don't know, what can we do here? What can be done? You're helping people as a middle person, as a linkage. You link people together and you try to maybe minimize some of the pain that you've clearly gone through. I mean, 6 years, it's ludicrous. It's absolutely ludicrous. But I guess I have a couple questions here. Is what can you do, and what is the main problem? Is it just straight up bigotry, cultural insensitivity, stereotypes? I want to hear from you.
I wouldn't like to point a finger first and say that the other side is at fault. Okay, because some of us, there are two segments of being Black.
Okay.
You're Black, the Black professionals that immigrate into Canada, and then you have the Black that have been born and raised in Canada. Okay, so I'm speaking for the Black immigrants, because those who were born and raised in Canada or within Windsor, for example, have not walked in the shoes of the immigrants. So they may be in position to help, but we don't help each other. I have to put it out there. I don't care what they think of me, but we don't help each other.
Yeah, that blew my mind when you told me that. Yes.
Yeah, we don't help each other. They see us differently. I've been thought maybe I'm Black, and I've been told I've not been in Windsor long enough to have a voice or to speak for other Black people. So if I'm experiencing that from my side of the fence, sorry?
Who determines that, right? Who is the decider?
Well, there's some people who, there's this thing about where they've been here long enough because of their parents were or whatever. I don't know whatever the excuse are. But the funny thing is the person, and this is I have it in writing, the person who said this is even supporting, is meant, I should say, meant to be there for the immigrant women into Windsor. I am an immigrant, and I was told that. So if I can't get it from my side of the bag of my fence, why would I be looking at others people to say? So there is education that's needed.
Yes.
Education on the part of on the subject of understanding what we have, what we bring to the table, how we think, what we know, you know, and how we approach. So basically, on this, I'm not going to say. I mean, education is really great. I mean, for me, I mean, there's so many positive aspects to diversity and inclusion. And on my part, for diversity and inclusion to be implemented, I wouldn't even say implemented, adapted successfully. There should be education on the culture.
Yes.
When we go work in an organization, there's a cultural there's a culture we need to learn, right? The culture is maybe you have a break at every 15 minutes or within the hour, whatever that's a culture.
Right.
So for me or for anybody immigrating into Canada has to understand the culture of the Canadian side of working. Let's talk about working to start with, okay? But then the employers have to understand also the immigrant, okay? If an employer would employ an immigrant, then you have to understand why we don't look you in the eye when you're talking to us.
Right, and explain that.
That is respect. It's disrespectful. I mean, I was born and raised in England, but I was raised also on cultural backgrounds as well. So you cannot stare your parents or anybody you think is in authority in the eye because it's disrespectful. And it's also a matter of humility as well, because we do not go out and tout our horns, depending on what side of what culture, what country or wherever you're from, where your culture is, because there's some people who need to show off and say, I know. And there are some people who are very quiet. They don't talk at all. So it's not because they don't know what you want them to know. It's just that they're made that way. That's the way they grew up.
Right.
It is. Right. You would think so. So there's so many things, there's so many issues that I feel goes against us to a great extent. Our names, okay, if you cannot pronounce, we as Africans, let me put it that way, we take pride in our name. So we don't change it. And again, I keep saying to people when they can't pronounce my name, I'm not offended if you cannot pronounce it. I don't blame you. If my dad gave me that name, he didn't think of putting in an English name or a westernized name to make it easier for me to default to that, right?
It's a
and my name has meaning. I'm proud of it, right? Yeah. So ask me how to pronounce it like you did, and ask me the meaning of it if you want to know what the meaning of it is, for example.
Which we do.
Yeah.
Which we do.
Also, I mean, my dad gave me 4 names, right? They all mean something like the blessings of God or God, I thank you for having, that kind of thing. They all have meanings.
Beautiful.
Right? Yeah. But then you have also our approach, our mannerism. You talk to us, we don't look in the eye. Muslims, you don't shake the woman's hand or something. I'm not so au fait with that, but they also have their own aspect of religion or culture that you have to understand. Right. If you give us a problem to solve, we have to take our time to understand the why sometimes, or maybe something, the way we approach it. We all approach from different angle. And again, it depends on when you went to school as well, where the education you had at the time. When you ask me a question, I'm taking so long to answer it. That's how I was raised. Explain yourself, clarify your answer. Let us know you know what you're talking about.
Yes. Yes.
But then some people, when you write, they say it's too long. I've had my manager tell me that's too long. Just give me 2 sentences. And I'm struggling to give it to you in 2 sentences what I want you to know that resulted to where I got to.
Right.
So there's so many things and I'm not asking employers to go learn every country on the continent or on the African continent, for example, but just have an idea that people have culture. Why they behave in this way? Why do we not sort of like jump up and use foul languages? We don't F and blind easily, And if you want to go out, companies allow people to smoke as many times as they want? Why don't you allow people to go pray as often times as they want to pray, as their religion allows them to?
Right.
You know, when someone is fasting, why don't you understand when they're fasting so that you know that they'll be weak or, you know, whatever the case may be?
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you employ people, why don't you ask something about their background to help you understand how to accommodate them?
Mm-hmm. Now, also, is there a part of it that is, and this is going to sound, this is,
Go
anyway,
for it.
is there a part of as the employer, and they want to have inclusion and they want to have diversity, but then there's, like you said, there's a quite a big difference in having like a Muslim person that is going to be praying quite a bit, or having somebody that is maybe Asian that will be, it'll be diverse, but then we won't have to worry about these kinds of things. Having them in here, we need to have all of this diversity, because not because of the color of their skin and not because of that, because the conversations that happen and the ideas that come in. So is that something that needs to be explained too? Like when you talk about the culture, do you not also mean that like what they bring to the table? So not just allow us to continue our culture here, where the employer will say, well, this is just going to be, it's going to be too much work. It's going to be too much time off. It's going to be too much, all the benefits that are going to come from it.
Well, you see, the thing is, I mean, that's why I said there should be a negotiating leverage.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How do we accommodate parents who've got children?
Right.
You know, young ones. I mean, some places don't. We know that. I mean, how many times kids get sick? There are no manuals to tell you when they'll fall ill.
Right.
You know, and stuff like that. Same thing with any other culture. I think you have to include. So,
Mm-hmm.
for example, if one comes in and says, "Well, I go to church on Sundays."
Mm-hmm.
Right, Muslim they go to mosque on Fridays. That's the main day for prayers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the Seventh-day Adventist goes to church on Saturday. Now, depending on where you fall, if you work on a Monday to Friday, if you work in the like a sedentary kind of work where it's Monday to Friday, then see if on a particular Friday, or if it's not going to be every Friday. But if you can work it like the days, like special occasions, you need to go, and we need a vacation to have a mental break, and also, what's the word, chill, you know, get away from everything. So we cannot use our vacation time just for everything that we can make allowances for. So why don't we say, okay, next week Friday I'm taking it off. I don't want to use my vacation time. I don't want to use my sick day. Can I work extra hours?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And if it's shift work, and if it, like shift work, parents don't like, or they want the accommodation where they can go to work and be home in time for their kids or whatever, why don't you have the same negotiation with the Muslim person and say, okay, if you want to go to church, if you want to go to mosque on Friday, would you be willing to work extra hours, or do you want to come late?
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to do? Let's see how best we can work together on this.
And I feel like this is a conversation that also needs to be happening in this, like in the universities and in the colleges, like not as an elective, like if because the people that are electing to take those classes already get it. Like they're choosing because they want to become better at it. But it should be like a business course that is mandatory, just like accounting, just like economics, which you're not going to be using them. A lot of business people don't even end up using what they learned in Accounting 101, but they're going to use a class like this so then they can understand, because just the basics of what you were saying about the making the eye contact in an interview, that could be okay, she's out because she doesn't have any respect for me. She's obviously hiding something. She's obviously in all of these things because of our culture. And then we put that on you, and we have no idea that you're actually being more respectful. So,
and also, I mean, basically, I mean, I find that among some cultures as well, when they do very well, they don't go out there shouting that I did it, right? They're very humble. They'll just shy away into the corner and think, okay, well, it's been done. Why bother? you know. So there's so many aspects of it that needs to, and you're right, you know, HRs as well as from the top level, they should really, I mean, my thing with inclusion, and I say this because I see that there are a lot of certification programs out there now, and I'm thinking, we all lived experience. Why would you want to certify me? If I were to go for a HR position, for example, you want me to go take the diversity and inclusion course. Why would I want to do that? I'm a lived experience. I know, you know.
Yeah.
So I mean, but again, that's a different subject altogether, because there are reasons why they may have it, because they're throwing in things like microaggressions and all those kind of things. But then I don't think it's so much that as in how you say it, how you approach it, what words you use. I mean, if I'm at the water cooler, you come up to me and say, "Hey, Lade, how are you doing today? I like your name. Does it mean anything? And then where are you from?" I mean, I would say you want to be educated, so I will talk to you nicely. But then when I do something, just say, "Where do you think you're from?" That you know, like, and then you have to start thinking, why are you talking to me like this?
Right.
So there are different ways in which we approach. And then inclusion, there are different ways in which, I'm not saying that organizations should spend billions of dollars reviewing their policy or revising their policy. I'm not saying they should or they shouldn't. But just like how we have, just by the toilet, we have wash your hands when you finish the toilet. They could have something.
Right.
They could have something. That's just administration work. Like, please ensure that when you order food, make sure you check to see if everybody's don't check if they're vegetarian or meat lovers or whatever it is. Figure out what might be of interest in it.
Don't we have basic? And by the way, we're talking with Omalade Williams, and she has a website, www.BLA-Access. So it's Blaccess, basically, BLAccess.ca. Please check that out. You can also follow her on Twitter, which I've done, at capital BLA Access. So it's Blaccess, basically, with the first three letters capitalized, _ CA. Sure, of course. That's why we have you on here. We want to learn, promote wisdom, education, empowerment. All of these things are important to us. But my point here is, don't we have some protocols already in place that aren't even being followed? So like you're talking about these, like you wash your hands. It's a basic sign by the toilet, right? When you leave. Sure. But then there are technically basic protocols, even in law. There's laws that give certain rights and certain expectations to people, but they're still not followed. So how do we get over that? This is the problem here. Even if if a law was passed or a company changed their policy in paper, it doesn't matter what it says on the paper, because people are still, there's just like these unspoken agreements, right? You know this.
Yeah,
right?
And I'm glad you brought that up. Hence, because with my business, I'm not out there to sort of like reinvent the wheel with PowerPoint slides and webinars, and I'm sure everybody's all zoomed out and everything else. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk. Yes. So having a meeting, for example, and maybe you want to order food. You need to know basically who the attendees are and try to let them feel included.
Good point.
Just that alone is not written. That's inclusion. That's feeling valued. That's feeling like you're counted. You matter to them. So they care about you.
What may be seen as a little thing. Even that can be helpful. Hey,
yes.
Do you have certain preferences? Do you have food allergies? Is there certain things you don't eat? Vegetarians, things like that, right?
But they should extend it to the culture within the diversity they have within the organization. You see, it's getting slightly better depending on who management is. With the Asians, it's almost, I think, second nature that they know that most of them don't eat meat, or they're vegetarians or vegan. So you find out basically what it is. Extend it to the Black, and I'm talking Black. I'm not talking ethnic minorities, because in organizations, as I said, there are many people who are lighter skinned, but they blend in. Yeah. But us Black people, the visible minority, are just not there, either in leadership roles, as professional roles, or when it comes to opportunities to be promoted, they're not counted. So I give you an example. I work within a farm, and I basically last year when I had my performance appraisal, let's say I'm the worst worker. Let's say I'm not even adhering to anything. My attendance is 100%. I have not been late, but they could not even give me the top mark for attendance.
What?
It's the top mark. So if it's 5 out of 5, give me 5.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Right? I didn't overuse. I mean, I still had vacation and everything else, but they couldn't give me. I mean, the reason why I point that out is because that can be quantified and proven.
Right.
You can say I'm not good at my job. You can say that I'm rude or whatever it is, but at least my attendance is there. So that is something I go. I mean, I go with.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Something can be proven, and I
Right.
still couldn't get the top marks for it.
Wow. Let's stew on that for a minute. We have a question from the audience. Ed. Hello, Ed. Good to see you, buddy.
Hey, Ed.
Ed's in our book club, by the way, every Monday night, 8 p.m. You can contact us, and we'll send you the Zoom link to our book club.
Yeah.
Hi,
Question,
Ed.
do you... Hey, look at that. Do you think it's the employer's responsibility to know about other cultures or the employee's job to know the Canadian culture? I believe it could be helpful if the employee educates the employer. What do you think of that?
Is that before getting the job or after getting
I
the
was just
job?
going to say, what, in the interview?
Well, since they're referring to those employee or employer, I assume it's after the job.
Right.
If it's after the job, again, that is where inclusion comes in. Is there?
Good point.
Do they have a suggestion box where you can put in ideas? And how do you? Because I've been in organizations where they have suggestion boxes, and how do you know that they even read it? They open it to do anything about it.
Right.
The only act that employers do is where they know they'll be audited and get into trouble for. And once you make an attempt to, and this is my own take, right? I'm not quoting anybody. I'm not putting anybody out there. This is just me saying because it's my lived experience.
Mhm.
And if you go ahead and say something, then you'll be earmarked as a troublemaker or you're being difficult.
Right.
When you point out things time and time again.
That's how you suppress. That's how you suppress workers for centuries, really.
Yes.
Oh, this person's going to talk. You're out. Next person realizes, oh, the last guy got fired for talking, so I'm going to shut my mouth.
And there are a number of people I've worked with and on the like within factories and all that. And you ask them, why do you put up with this, or why do you like this, or listen, I'm only here for the money. But then obviously you could see the mental impact.
That's the whole thing here. Yeah.
You can see the mental impact of such behavior from the employers or supervisors, whoever that's in place.
And what is that? What is that impact?
I was just going to give you an example. As a white person who is within an environment where maybe it's stressful, you're dealing with customers, following or taking orders and all that, and then you're working with people on the front line doing stuff. The person in the office is allowed to be temperamental, shouty, moody. They don't get fired based on that. But then when they go talk to the frontline staff, who is an ethnic minority person, if the person doesn't smile or has an attitude or says, don't talk to me like that, they pull the person into the office to tell them off.
It's a similar thing that happens to women specifically as well.
It is a woman-to-woman thing too, I'm telling you about though. So
no, yeah.
But I'm just saying that you're talking about mental impact. So if I were to work on that front, I had a young kid, I would being shouted at. It's not going to bode well, and I go home and my kids start falling over crying and telling me they want something when I know that I may not work tomorrow because I'm so tired or fatigued or mentally depressed.
Right.
So we have to look at the long term, the impact, the cascading impact of lack of understanding of how we feel, how we make people feel included or part of or feel valued.
Okay, this is gonna be wrong to say, but I know that people are thinking this because it was kind of in Ed's thing a little bit about the Canadian culture. So here's the thing: is at what point is it a corporate culture that the people just have to handle, like they just have to live by it, like uniform for example, just like, you know what I mean? Like, this is the way that we are. We always wear like these shirts. We always do this. We only take our breaks at these times. We only do like all these things that are, well, the breaks aren't, because you made a very good point for that. But for things that have just been in the corporate culture, and then I guess they may be worried about not just coming in and saying, nope, I don't want to do any of that. I want to, this is like, I come in late because we're more nonchalant with our time. You know what I mean? Like, so I will be here at 9:00 or 9:30 or whenever, or whatever it might be. Where do you draw the line of being inclusive and then being kind of just negating everything that your company stands for, kind of thing? Like, I have a really difficult time because everything you're saying seems very simple.
And I get what you're saying. So, and I can assure you of one thing, that I don't think, other than myself, I have to say, I mean, because I was raised in the Western world, but there are no immigrants migrating into another country or immigrating into a country that they don't know about that country or how they operate. So,
Okay.
for example, my son, I was speaking to my son is in England. They went through cadet when they were younger, and he's now in the Navy. And we're talking yesterday, and I said to him, I really wanted you to move into Canada with me. He said, Mom, Canada has nothing to offer me. And I was taken aback and said, you're very cheeky.
Mm-hmm.
He said, no, Mom, I researched to see what their cadet offerings were. I researched where you are right now. I researched the mentality of where you are right now. So immigrants do carry out an in-depth research to know about it. So when it comes to the work culture, you're talking about employment, most organizations have an induction period, 2 to 3 weeks, where you're inducted.
Mm-hmm.
And in that time, I would believe if you're not a very outspoken person, then obviously there's an issue. I'm not saying it's all right or all wrong on the immigrant part, but you ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
So they do housekeeping, for example, right? And they show you where the bathrooms are and everything else. I mean, you could ask for what you need in the bathroom. Is it possible for me to have this as a Muslim, so I could wash my face and hands when I'm ready, or whatever it is? I'm just giving an example. I'm throwing it out there.
Right.
So there is always, I'm sure most organizations have an induction period process where they get to know you and say, have you got any issues, anything you want us to be aware of, and the like.
So this is where so when you were talking, we were talking about this in, I think, one of our networking groups, and you were talking about what you do and going and kind of doing a walk around, like you walk around and see what's going on with this. So this wouldn't help as much with the hiring or the interview, but with the people that are already there. So then you can become the voice of those people. So then they're not having the issue of having to say it, and then they're the person that's speaking up. And then that would benefit the employer. Yeah.
You see, the thing is, most organizations, anyway, speaking from a professional standpoint, you apply for a job. I mean, let me take it from England, where you would apply for a job. You ask questions about who the manager is, how many people they've got working for them, and possibly even could be as daring and ask them why the last person left. And then they walk you around the establishment. I think they do that in Canada as well, where they walk you around the establishment, so that you know whether it's somewhere you would like to have clean or whatever it is that you have to look at, and kind of thing. So yes, I mean, it is a require, but some people are so timid because you spend so much time looking for work. You just go, okay, yes, let me sign. I need a job.
Right. Yeah. Bills are coming in.
Right. Yeah. There's a sense of desperation with anybody. Anybody's looking for a job, which is universal there. So some of these parts are universal issues to the work environment, but then some of them are very specific to cultural insensitivity and lack of inclusion. So I
I think
that.
I'll give you a simple example. In any environment, especially where you have a lot of immigrants, maybe the farming, the factories and all that, you just take a look at the vending machines. It's either sugar or salt items in there,
Right.
or meat or cheese or whatever in sandwiches and stuff like that. Now, if you have in like on the factory floor, you have about a third of them maybe ethnic minority. It's a broadly known fact that most people from Africa, not most people, but the ailment from Africa is blood pressure, diabetes, and the like. So if your vending machine has nothing to supplement their energy while they're working and they go for the sugar and that, obviously, I mean, their health would suffer along the way because if they forget their lunch at home or something like that. So why don't we look into what are the common snacks that everybody can enjoy? You can enjoy, Leanne, I can tell you.
Exactly. That's the human.
It would benefit all of us.
Chips,
trust me, it would benefit everybody. Obesity is a huge problem in this country. So all of those things need to be addressed. But no, you're right. I'm not trying to make light of that. That makes sense.
No, I'm just saying that's something that's the simplest inclusion I can even point to.
I don't think a lot of people think about it like that. So that's why I'm glad you're bringing this stuff up. And that's why we're really pleased to have on Omolade Williams. And we're trying to get an understanding. What's going on in the workplace? What's going on for people who are coming to a new country, trying to get a job, immigrant life? There's more to it than just, there's my country, give me a job, I'm going to live my life. It's way more complex than that. If anybody thought it was simple, in fact, in this country, I used to teach history. And I'm very familiar with the repetitive nature of immigrant brutality at some points, and blaming and scapegoating, and it's gone on in the United States forever. It goes on today, just like it did 200 years ago, and it's a damn shame. It's always been a shame, but that's why we have you on here. We're trying to get an understanding of what we can do. We want to talk solutions. We have, we have about another 15 minutes or so. So what are some more solutions that we could talk about? Because our audience, Ed says, I find this topic very interesting. So people are curious and they want to know how they can be part of a solution.
I'll give you a flip side to that. So I talk about immigrants coming in black from African continents that maybe have not traveled and they have accents and all that. I have an accent. My mom lived in Jamaica for 20 years. So I did do a lot of traveling out there. Beautiful. I have been to Africa. I've lived in Africa for some time. And I had to learn to communicate with English, French, German, and Spanish people, Italian, while I was in England because of my job took me to those countries. Yeah. So I have an accent. However, one of the things also I envisaged, I experienced was that words we use. So we may even speak proper English, right? Maybe not with the Canadian accent like now, but then we use words differently. Or it means different things. Like we talk about chips. You're thinking about the bag of chips, the salty bag chips. We're talking about fries.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
My manager was really mad at me when I used the word torchlight. It's referred to as flashlight here.
Oh, okay.
So he thought I was going to torch the farm or something. So these are things that we stop and think and say, what do you mean by that? That we don't understand, rather than
it's just a miscommunication.
Exactly.
It's because innocent miscommunication.
Exactly.
And that goes too with, so last week we talked about the book, The 4 Agreements. And one of them is just don't make assumptions. And we make so many assumptions. You were saying, we were talking, and you had said about how these celebrities and these TV things are making Africa, which I never thought about until you said this.
About the charity, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and I never thought about it, but and correct me if I'm wrong when you're saying this, but what you were kind of getting at is that there's so much charity of, we're going to build a school in Africa and we are going to feed the children of Africa and we are going to do this of Africa. And then somebody comes from Africa with their masters, ready to go, totally educated, can speak English. They're going to benefit your company so much. And then they look at it like, is that where you came from? Is from these? So you don't have schools. So how are you educated? Like I never put, and I'm completely naive, but I never put those two together. And as soon as you said that, I thought, holy mackerel. Yeah, they're not doing it justice.
No.
So,
But
I
it's
mean,
an endless
it's-
cycle of. Sorry.
Yeah.
but it's just education. It's just education.
It is. I'm not saying that people just go out and just look at it and don't believe. But when kids see that, and I did it to my kids too, I have to admit that, because when my kids were misbehaving in England, and I said, listen, you guys don't want to stay here, you're not behaving, you're not keeping your room clean, I'm taking your PSP from you. Look at the kids on the television that they're hungry. I'm going to give it to them, you know?
Right.
So we do. However, it would be nice that we are seen to be very intelligent, smart, you know, and that we know what we're talking about. We have the experience. We walked it.
They're
You know?
saying that because after you said that, I started researching all this kind of stuff. And so they're talking about how Africa is the emerging market for fintech technology. Like
It's getting better.
yeah, it's huge there. So that just blew my mind. Like, why wouldn't you know this you're in the tech industry, and that's what you're trying to do too, is you're trying to get people into those kinds of jobs and stuff. So I don't know.
I know, and I mean, this is a subject that can go on because everybody has their own connotation and understanding of it. Because again, it's what I find again is acceptable, I mean, or understandable that the Asians talk in a particular way. And sometimes they can be very and I feel that they could be disrespectful sometimes with the passion. But I find that of the French and certain aspects of the Italians, they come across sometimes really aggressive, but no, that's the way they speak.
Right.
But then us Black people, when we do that, is you're very intimidating.
Right.
So there are little things like, for example, when I was at the call center, they would say pajama day today. We don't wear pajamas out of our house.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you have a cultural day today, like you have a Jersey day today, for example?
Yeah.
You know, wear something that's cultural or whatever it is. Well, pajama day.
Right. So the Americans and Canadians can go in their pajamas because that's our culture. And then
Ed says that he doesn't want this to sound stupid, but movies, TV, news, books, etc. can really help learning about diversity. He says, for example, the show Mike and Abishola teaches me a lot about African culture. But isn't that right there, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't saying African culture right there, isn't that already a misnomer, a mistake? It's too broad. It's not just one African culture.
Yeah.
No offense, Ed. You're not stupid, Ed. You're a good guy. So.
No. And he's right. Well, that's why I said you don't need to go understand every single country, but you have to understand that with diversity and inclusion, that there's culture that drives that.
Right.
For diversity to work effectively, for you to feel included, then there should be some amount of culture taken into consideration. That's my take. That's all I'm saying. Mm-hmm. Because the way we approach, the way we speak proper sometimes, some of us don't. But if you see we do not mocking with you with your swearing and all that, then don't think that we're not used to it.
Right.
You know, we weren't brought up like that. We go to school and we have to learn. It's shock. And one of the key things is that when we're in Africa, for example, you don't move to the next class until you pass your exams. The exams to be taken. Mm-hmm. So here you go, here you just go because of your age. It doesn't work like that. You could sit in a class you could be 10 years old and be sitting in a class with somebody who's 16.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow.
So they make sure that education is really ingrained and that you understand before you go to the next class. So that's why sometimes our approach is ensuring that we understand before we do anything. But sometimes it seems as though we don't know what we're talking about or why we're asking these questions. It's understanding before you take the next step.
Right.
Did we cover this earlier? I could be a total moron for this, but what brought you here to Canada? Why did you come here? Did we already explain this? Because I feel like I don't know.
Question.
Why I came? No, I came. I've always wanted to come to Canada because I wanted to expose my kids.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, England is so much better, so much similar to Canada. And one of the things about Canada is that it shares both Canada and both US and UK's principles. So you have the parliament on the political side of it, and you have the US for the business side of it.
Mhm.
And my kids, I mean, I have to say, even though, I mean, but they're smart kids. And since they started telling me when they were about 9, 10, that they wanted to go to Harvard and just go, I said, not even if I sold my house would I be able to afford for you
Yeah.
to go. So,
Right.
so I wanted to broaden because I worked also for a Japanese company, and gave me room to travel and understand
You
and get to
traveled to Europe
understand
and
different
stuff.
things. Yeah. So I wanted my kids to be very well exposed so that they know how to get on with people. Same thing, culture and inclusion.
And like you said, yeah, now like in the beginning when you were saying you didn't think it was going to be 6 years before you get a job because you were coming over, you were educated and you were coming over on the skilled visa. So it was like you're pretty much set that, okay, great. I have done everything that I need to do. I'm doing everything by the book. And now it should have been a very easy come in. And now, sure, maybe you wouldn't have had the CEO job of some
No.
tech company. Like anybody, you come in and you work your way up. But that wasn't even happening.
That was not happening. So.
Okay. So it's frustrating and nothing is like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. I'm always can't believe that it's as bad as it is. I always
you're
like
my sweet, naive, wonderful girlfriend. So.
Everything that you're saying about the simplicity of, okay, Muslim people have to go to church on Fridays.
Mosque. Yeah.
The mosque, right? Yes, sorry. They go, and so now they can put the same amount of hours in. They can get the job done if they just do, like a couple hours every day. So they work 10 hours a day instead of 8 hours a day, and then they make up for it, whatever. It makes sense. It sounds super simple. And the things that you were talking about, even them praying during the day, you can go out and smoke all you want, but then heaven forbid you go out and spend the same amount of time and do something. So then you're rejuvenated when you come back in.
It's very possible. It's very possible. The last job I worked at, I had a friend and he was from Africa and he was Muslim and he brought his prayer mat and he was allowed to go pray as much as he wanted to. So it is possible to make this happen. It was a valet job and he would stick the mat in our valet stand and leave it in there and it was always there. So
you see, the thing is, it's not so much educating. It's not so much that, but it's educating the workforce, the HR, to understand that you have that accommodation, and then your frontline supervisor or manager to understand that they should allow that and share it among your colleagues so that they don't feel that you're giving special treatment to create.
Right.
Do you understand what I'm saying? So for me, it's education along the way and across the board, and make it a culture. That way, organizational culture.
Yeah. And he was from Sudan, not just from Africa. There's countries in Africa, by the way. There's a lot of them, and Sudan is where he was from. So it's important that we really start to, I mean, if we got about 5 minutes left here, if people go to your website, what would they get from it? What can you provide to people, or are you just trying to spread the word? Like, how do you see yourself in this role right now?
I am trying to spread the word so that they know that I'm available, so employers can engage me. Just to do even just simplicity, just to ensure that they're inclusive enough or they accommodating enough.
Consultation. That makes sense.
Consultation. They can do that. They can do a website to figure out what they want because I cover empowerment knowledge. So I'm sharing mentorship because we have esteemed people. Black professionals out here who can also we also help graduates as well because they come they attend the university but they are not aware of what resources are available for them. So as graduates, in generally speaking, as graduates or professional people here in Windsor, let me speak for Windsor, there is a gap in provision for graduates and professional people seeking work. There's a huge gap in that, because as far as I know, organizations are not equipped to be able to deal or manage professionals coming in who already have a resume, who have years of skills behind them, how to help them navigate the system for them to get a job, maybe not to the level they were before they left their country, but at least an entry level.
Mm-hmm. And
Interesting.
then it's frustrating because the organizations that we do have in place here don't get it either. So that's the frustrating part as well.
I wouldn't say they don't get it. I think it's a case of they think they know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't know what they don't know.
Right.
Maybe
Good
that's
point.
also almost worse than being totally ignorant of it, to think you have it figured out, because that kind of gives the comfort to these people that, oh, we're good now. We're moving forward. We solved that issue.
Right.
Now that is really eye-opening, and this conversation has been so interesting. We're speaking, of course, with Omalade Williams. Please follow her on Twitter at BLA Access Blackcess, BLACess_CA, and the website blaccess.ca. She can I know you focus and live in Canada, but if a company reached out from the United States, do you think that you could be helpful to them too?
Sure. Oh gosh.
Yeah. I didn't want to limit it. I just wanted to double check.
I mean, I'm just to put the word out there. I want to look at it I'm dealing and handling inclusion culture from the positive angle.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be something that's fun, enjoyable, that makes it easy. It makes it a seamless integration.
You're not looking to come down on people.
No, because you see what's happening is that everybody's walking around each other on eggshells. It's a very uncomfortable. I feel it. You don't have to say it. I feel it.
Yeah.
It's really bad right now. It's gotten worse since last year, because I cannot even have a white joke with you right now, because then I'll be termed discriminator or racist.
Right.
Oh wow.
Right.
Just like they attacked. So last thing I'm going to say is, as a Black woman asking a white person to help me promote a material for Black community to get to learn from, they slaughtered her with words, gutter words, white supremacist and all that, because I provided her with the information. And they said in turn, when she tried to explain that I gave her the information, they said I'm token, and that she's trying to throw me under the bus. It is education.
Right. But you're doing this at a really good time, because corporations, if you're listening as a corporate recruiter or whatever, they are trying to change culture inside of the corporations right now, not even about inclusion, just the fact that people don't want to work in corporation anymore. Corporate has such a bad name because nobody wants to go in, because nobody cares about the mental health of it. Mm-hmm. So this is the perfect time that if any corporation, or if you work for a corporation, that you know that they are open to changing the corporate culture so then they can be more open for mental health, this is a huge part of it. Because not only are they going to understand inclusion when it comes to cultural diversity, they're going to understand inclusion with human people. Like, we just need to be included, all of us. People, I think Ed came on and there was a part there where he was saying about how he, for his mental health, is allowed to be able to pray and meditate for his mental health. It's the same thing. And once they realize that we're all people, and I know that sounds super naive and like easy and like butterfly, but it's true. We just need to have inclusion and be open to everybody that is out there. So
sure.
It's I think you're doing a really, really great thing, Omalade. And I know it's not easy. So I thank you so much. And I just love that you're having the conversation with as many people as you can. So, and you are like one of the sweetest people. So I knew that it was going to be like a really good conversation, because you are very open, and that's all that we need. We just need to have those conversations.
And I thank you so much for the opportunity to put the word out. Yes. And also, I mean, at any point in time, anyone can contact me. No, there are no limits. I'm not holding back. Yes. You ask, because that's the only way you get educated.
Yes.
And you can communicate better once you understand how. Thank you so much.
That is so beautiful.
you.
I want to say one last thing. Oh, I want to say one last thing. White people feel afraid to ask black people or people that are not a culture that they think they're not related to in a cultural way for any type of questions, really. There's a fear that is starting to build up there, and it could be for a bunch of different reasons, but what do you say to that? Can we kind of, that needs to stop, right? It's
Great
okay
question.
to ask honest, as long as you're not being cruel in any way, right? Or is it difficult?
As I said, we're walking around each other on eggshells, and I don't like it. Feel free.
Yes.
From my own point, feel free, because if you don't ask, you will know.
Mhm.
And when you do things, then when you do anything that is wrong, which is termed wrong, because we have a lot of unbiased, unconscious unbiased, what's the word for it? Unconscious bias or unconscious people that just don't know that they're saying the wrong thing, right?
Yeah.
So we need to be open. We should be open to hear them, and you should feel free to ask questions.
Right.
Just like I would ask you, what's in the burger that you're serving? Is it pork or meat? Why don't you feel the same way to ask me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And you made a good point about the water cooler, that if you're at the water cooler and you're going to say where you come from, there's two different ways of asking it. And so your delivery is huge. And I feel if everybody could just be more kind to each other and then ask the questions, then they'll be more open to it, because you can get people very defensive very quickly when we have these conversations, or you can come from a very curious place and then it opens up the conversation.
It does. Thank you.
That's what we're all about here. Ed says, good luck, Omalati. He really appreciate you, Ed. Thank you for your participation.
You,
all the other viewers who watched and were participating, even if you're just listening, we welcome you here. Omalati is fantastic. We're going to have you back on. You're welcome back on the show anytime. We'll keep this conversation going. Let's not be afraid to ask questions, because we're all about being open here. That's why we do this show. 61 episodes of just trying to cut through the crap and get honest.
And please feel free to drop me any questions that they didn't feel that they could drop in at the time, and so I can take a look at how to address it.
Yes, please go to her website, Blaccess, BLAccess, blaccess.ca, or follow her on Twitter, capital BLA Access, Blaccess without the K _CA. You could DM her, contact her. I know that Omalati is happy to be of service, and that's why we had her on. And that's it. So next week, we will move forward and talk about other issues, but this issue will always be here. All of these issues we talk about in the show, they're all currently happening simultaneously. And we just hope that we can spread the word. And next week, keep spreading the word. But don't forget, Book Club, Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern. Please come to the Book Club if you want to be a part of a new book. We're picking one tomorrow night, right, Leanne?
We've already picked it.
Oh, we did. Look at me. I don't even know.
We've already picked it. It's going to be, You Will See It When You Believe It by Wayne Dyer. So that starts in 2 weeks. So that is, but it's still 2 weeks. So we got 2 more weeks of the beautiful Matthew McConaughey.
All right, great.
And like Omalati said, if you're uncomfortable asking the question, ask us, and then we will direct it. And it doesn't have to, it can be anonymous. And we will get you the answers too. But Omalati, she's just so wonderful. And you can have any conversation with her.
Yes, I'm really glad we got to do this. Thank you so much, Omalati.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.